Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and I am pleased to say I am joined by Jack Reeve from TalkNorwichCity ahead of the game at the weekend at Carrow Road. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks so much for having me on, Dan. It's a pleasure to be doing these collaborations again. We're back in the Premier League. We're back winning games, and yeah, great to chat to other Premier League fans.
Well, it's great to do a collab because I think the last time it was the last time you were in the league, which felt like ages ago. And I want to congrats to you on your channel because you know the amount it's grown over a number of years now. Predominantly when you're in the championship, it still has grown. I have to Talk Norwich City podcast. If anyone's watching this who hasn't tuned into the Talk Norwich City podcast, definitely go and check it out. The amazing guests you've had. I was listening to the Stuart Webber one the other day. Really insightful, and I'm sure we'll come into that as we talk about Norwich. But congrats, and also Racing Post. That's a new position for you as well.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, really kind words. Thanks, mate. It's been a bit of a slog in the Championship, I must admit. Last season was an absolute delight, but I'm sure we'll get onto it in a bit. That first season under Daniel Farke, I mean, it was really poor at times, and creating content, I'm sure you know, when your team isn't doing well is a struggle. Yeah, down in London now, working at the Racing Post, really good team around me. So, yeah, all is going well. It's going well on the pitch, going well off the pitch. I can't moan.
Definitely, and the first thing I want to touch on straight away is the Newcastle game, the 3-1 victory, because especially after the first weekend, going up to Anfield, having a difficult defeat like that, I know there was lots of detractors towards Norwich style of play, simply saying adapt straight away, but personally for me I was very happy, and I thought you shouldn't adapt, you should stick to what you were doing in the Championship because it works so well. Your thoughts on the game at Newcastle, of course, being there yourself and covering it. Your thoughts on it, and how do you think it went, being your first win back in the Premier League?
Yeah, it was an absolute delight Saturday. I'm really glad you touched upon there that opening game against Liverpool. It was obviously the first game of the Premier League season. It was live on Sky. The whole world was watching, and I was really intrigued to see the way that we were going to go about business. We, of course, played a really expansive attacking style in the Championship. And the main thing that pundits said when we got promoted was, are we going to be able to play that same style of football? So going to Liverpool, Europe's best side at the moment, factually, was always going to be tough. But yes, we got beat, and we got beat well. But we won the second half. We created a wealth of chances. If we had a tiny bit more quality in behind Pookie, I think we could have scored a couple more. And a couple of the goals were just simply defensive mistakes. So going into that Newcastle game off the back of that defeat, I just knew that if we played with a similar style of football and created the same amount of chances, we were going to beat Newcastle. Newcastle are a poor outfit. I don't think they've got much quality throughout that side. I think they've signed poorly. So it didn't come as a surprise. The manner in which we won didn't come as a surprise. I think the thing that was really pleasing for me was that Teemu Pukki hat-trick. We knew he scored goals, and we know how good of a striker he is. That step up from the Championship to the Premier League is huge. So it was always going to be whether he could continue to score goals. And as we've seen so far, yes, he can.
It's very important, especially for the promoted side, to get those first 3 points, especially after an opening game like that. And as you said, I think definitely there was improvement. I thought it was really encouraging to see a team go to Anfield and take the game to Liverpool. And I even think Chelsea probably were able to see, so I was able to see some of the weaknesses of Liverpool that then we were able to exploit in our Super Cup game with them. And I think that's encouraging. I know, of course, you're 4-0 down at half time, but I think if you're looking at it from the bigger picture, I think the style of football that Farke and Norwich are trying to play, I think is very good for the Premier League, and I think very naturally suits the Premier League
as well. It's like going to Anfield and win and getting a result. They're not the games that are going to keep us in this division. It is the games at home to Newcastle. It's the games at home to Aston Villa. They're the games we need to win to stay in this division. You can go to Anfield, and for us, it's not a big deal if we lose. Of course, we want to play our style of football, but the way we went there, the way we played, the way we created chances, it was all positives for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the positives you touched on, Pookie, Teemu Pukki, the Pookie Party starts, and it started 4 goals in 2 games. He was a free transfer from Brondby. He scored 30 goals for you last season. I think he is so sort of symbolic of Farke's work, especially in the transfer window, of getting these players for a cheap price and bringing them in and finding gems. I think that's something that's really commendable about Farke, the work he's done at your club. What makes Pookie, because I'm sure you would have heard this before, there's nothing about him when you look at him and you think there's nothing about him that stands out. He doesn't appear to be a big character. He doesn't have anything he doesn't have a stylish haircut. He doesn't have a stylish goal celebration, at least from what I've seen. But he's just a very naturally talented goal scorer. All of those finishes, every finish he's in have been good goals. The Liverpool finish was brilliant. All of the 3 goals were all different goals as well. I was very impressed with the variety of goals. I think that's another important thing that is about the Premier League. That step up from the Championship is the defences and the level you go up. It's so impressive. So what is it about him, watching him week in, week out, that makes him such a threat and such a good player for Norwich?
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned there. He's not your typical striker. And I can remember when we had Harry Kane on loan a few seasons back now, and his loan spell at Norwich City was incredibly unsuccessful. He didn't score for us. He ruptured ligaments in his knee and went back to Tottenham. But I can see bits of Pookie in Harry Kane in terms of when he gets the ball in the side of the box, you would put your money on him scoring a goal. It also helps that he's in a side that creates a lot of chances. We've got Emi Buendia in behind him, Todd Cantwell. They're 2 players who will definitely create at least 1 chance a game for Pookie. But he's just a really clinical goal scorer. I don't think he scored a goal outside of the box throughout his whole Norwich City career. He's only scored 1 header. He hasn't ever scored a penalty for Norwich City. So all of his goals come within the box, usually first touch. And his movement is just so clever. His runs in behind defences are so clever. And for me, he's the most clinical striker I've seen at Norwich City in my time, certainly above Grant Holt. So, look, he is a striker that I think will continue to score goals in the Premier League and will certainly cause defences problems throughout the season.
Talk about the amount of chances you make, and it's something I want to talk about because Farke has developed his style over a number of years. There have been, obviously watching your channel, there have been down moments where you've even doubted. I think it was back at the start, of last season. I remember you being concerned whether Farke should even be at the club. So there's clearly been some challenges and ups and downs with the progression of his style. He likes to play a 4-2-3-1, very much on the front foot, very pressing, very modern, progressive style of play. How has Farke developed that? Because one person you spoke to on your podcast, Stuart Webber, something I read from him was, he employs someone who can implement a certain style of play, be open-minded in the transfer market, and promote young players. That's the perfect blend. We all love to see it, but that's very easily said. How has Farke been able to implement that at Norwich and get them to where they are now?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question, right? And we've got 2 people at the club now, in Daniel Farke and Stuart Webber there, who you alluded to, who, for me, Stuart Webber, I've gone on record and said before, I think he's a genius, and I think he will be at top club within the next 5 years. I'm talking like one of Europe's best clubs. He's done it at Huddersfield. He's done it at Norwich City. He's done it on very limited budgets. I'd hate to think what he could do with a bit of money behind him. Although the glamour in what he does is almost that lack of cash, and he's a thinker. He takes personal development very seriously. But in terms of Daniel Farke, one, it's patience. He was always given the backing of the board. I said, so at the start of last season, in our promotion season, we went the first 6 games about winning. I said ahead of the game we went into against Ipswich, and many other fans said that he was like, if we lost that game at Ipswich, I thought he would have been sacked. Having spoke to Stuart on and off the record, that was never the case. He was always going to stay at Norwich City. The first season he was at Norwich, we finished 14th. And to be honest, you could kind of see a style starting to come. You could certainly see the retention of possession starting to come. And the only thing we were lacking, we were creating chances, but we weren't scoring goals. So we needed one more player, and that player came in Teemu Pukki. So you've got a real mix here. You've got a clear philosophy, and a philosophy that will be given time. And you've also got a man in Stuart Webber who's employed a whole host of analysts and scouting staff. We're really taking the analytics seriously. We're looking in other markets that we haven't looked in before. We've invested a lot of money in that area. So we've got basically 2 philosophies really lining up. And when you've got added patience and the belief from fans that this will work, you've got something really special. So it's the recruitment of players who come in on cheap. You look at Onel Hernandez, you look at Maurice Lightly, you look at Tom Tribal, all came as fairly raw players, but we knew fitted in the system. Once they're given to a coach in Daniel Farke, who's so good with man management, who's so good in getting the best out of his players, that's where the sweet point is, and that's where we've seen the success. So there's a lot of different elements. There's a lot of very clever thinking going on, and I think we're seeing that become more popular in terms of a sporting director heading things up, and then a manager who simply focuses on philosophy. The buzzword culture is often bandied about at Norwich, but it's genuine, and there's a trust, and there's a real vision, and everyone's bought into that. Fans to owners to shareholders to Daniel. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's just that real clear vision, and the vision that will stay even if results don't maybe match that.
I think it's so crucial, and not going into it too much on my channel, and what I desire from Chelsea now is a bit of what I think you've seen from Norwich, what I think you've seen from Liverpool, even what I think I've seen from Tottenham, is that patience, is understanding, and I think especially at the top of the game now, progressive managers who are given patience. The days of, and Chelsea have very much operated like this. Get a manager, wins a trophy, 2 years you reset and you go again. And even Norwich may have had that in the past, but I think now the modern stuff, for me, I believe that the game now is so much more about embedding a style of play, an auteur type of manager who is going to make his team his own. And Farke is one of those managers. Why I want to see Norwich do well is because no one else could have done what he done at Norwich. That is his team. He has a certain style of play, he has a certain style of philosophy, and he's clearly making that work. And I think for the, as I said earlier, for the Premier League, I think it's going to work wonders actually. Just before we wrap up, thoughts on Chelsea and Lampard. I did hear you on the James Alcott podcast, I think it was, and you said you're not scared of Chelsea. Which doesn't surprise me considering, our openings to the season. But just your thoughts on Chelsea and Lampard, and because there's been a lot of changes over the summer, the transfer ban, no Eden Hazard, the fact that Lampard's now bringing in young players to the team. What's your perspective on Lampard and what he's hopefully going to try and do at Chelsea?
Yeah, I was hoping you hadn't watched that podcast, because I wasn't very complimentary about Chelsea, to say the least. But I think I stand by the statement that I'm not scared of you coming to our place. I think it would be maybe a different story if we were travelling down to Stamford Bridge. But I just think we're so good at home. Like, there's probably 2 clubs I'm scared of in this season: Manchester City and Liverpool. The rest, I think we've got a chance at home, and I genuinely believe that. I'm really, really intrigued to see how this season plays out for Chelsea. I watched you in the Super Cup. I thought you looked good. I thought you were unlucky not to win that. Losing on a penalty shootout, I don't think you can ever get too caught up in that. I watched you against Man United. That game was just carnage. I think that could have gone either way. I know the scoreline doesn't reflect that, but for large parts you were in it. And I watched the Leicester game, and I thought you were really disappointing, actually. And I thought Leicester could have probably and should have probably won that. So the only reason I'm not fully sold on Frank Lampard, I know he's a Chelsea legend. One, I don't think legends going back to football clubs to manage is ever a good idea. We've had it at Norwich, it didn't work. Liverpool have had it, it didn't work. Loads of clubs have had a legend go back, and it just doesn't work. 2, I watched a lot of Derby County last season, and I didn't see a style from them. They had a very good squad on paper. He took them from 6th to 6th. There was no improvement, really. Yes, they got to a playoff final, but they didn't play well when it mattered. But it was that lack of style that didn't convince me. Of course, it's a very different situation at Chelsea, and I guess your expectations are maybe lower than they have been in previous seasons because of that transfer ban, because of the loss of arguably your best player. And I think as well, when you lose the amount of goals you've lost, I don't think Tammy Abraham is the man to necessarily replace them. I think he's a very good player. He scored a lot of goals in the Championship, and I think he will score goals in the Premier League. But if you want to be a top 4, top 6 club, I don't think he's that yet. I think he will be, but I don't think he's that yet. So, I'm interested to see how it plays out, and I'm never gonna have the connection to Chelsea that a Chelsea fan does. But I think it could be really powerful in a sense that I think you will start to get that connection back that you maybe haven't had in previous seasons. Can Lampard do that? I think he probably can. Can that be replicated on the pitch? I've got doubts.
Yes, it's very early days, and it was one of the toughest starts I've seen a Chelsea side get in recent memory. Yep. So lots of things are going to happen. On the game on Saturday, I think because both teams clearly look like they want to attack, and clearly look like they want to be on the front foot. And you spoke about your confidence at home. It looks like we might have a very open, very entertaining game. It's quite generic, but score prediction for the game. How do you think the game will play out on Saturday? And do you think Pookie can continue the party that he started already?
Well, you know, Dan, that the Pookie Party never stops, and you're invited to it if you want to come. I'm going to go on a slightly different angle here. I'm surrounded by a lot of gamblers in my day job, and I think they've picked out a bet that I really like. So it's Chelsea to win the first half, Norwich to win the second half, game to end in a draw. So here's my reasoning in that. I think Chelsea really quick out of the blocks. I think we're slightly naive defensively. But second half, we're a second half team. If we would have taken solely first half performances last season, we would have finished 18th in the Championship. We scored a lot of late goals, and we're really powerful in that sense. I think it will be a draw. I think it will be 2-2. And I think Pookie will get 1 goal. I think he will continue the goal scoring form.
Definitely. I think there is danger there. I think I'll go for I want to see Chelsea get the first win in the season because I think we need it. I'll go for a 2-1, but I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think Norwich, as they've already shown already this season, have got threats, and with a player like Pookie, we've discussed, and the style of football and the crowd that are going to be behind the team after a good win last week. I think it's going to be another challenge for Chelsea, another learning curve for some of the younger players away from home. So I'll go with that. But thank you, Jack, for coming on. As ever, great talking points there, some really good insight into Norwich, and if you want more of that, I highly suggest go and subscribe to Talk Norwich City. As I've already expressed, I've got an amazing podcast with some great guests that I'm sure will continue to come onto your channel, and just great analysis. And I think it's so important, especially online, to, as a fan, to be able to understand other clubs and understand the culture of other clubs. I think it just makes you more of an intelligent fan when you're able to debate with other people, as we've had here with a good discussion. So definitely go and check out Jack Reeve on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm pretty sure you're just everywhere, man. You literally go and spot it. Links will be in the description below. Thank you, Jack, for coming on. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.